This is Rusty Yonkers, and welcome to another Atomic Super Geek tutorial on Photoshop. We're using Photoshop Elements 4.0, and we're currently in the organizer. And what we're going to talk about today is actually taking a photo and aging the photo. This is very similar to some of the work that we did in one of our recent tutorials on watermarking. Pretty much most of the steps are very similar. And the photo we're kind of using right here is, if you look, we had some photos that I've taken that looked very period. This was a point in time where the family was in Fiddler on the Roof, and they were all dressed up in this period costume from 1900. And I looked at that and I thought, wow, this would really make a great photo for aging. And if you look here, you can see where I had like one photo here that is like original. I have one here that's been, a couple of them that have been cropped and aged. One more of a black and white and one more of a kind of a sepia. And for the black and white one, we're going to go ahead and use this one to kind of work with. We're going to go into version set here, and I'm going to reveal items in version set. So I right clicked on the photo to get this menu, and then I'm going to go to reveal items, and you can see that I've got actually 3 photos here that we had to deal with. I had the original, and then I flipped and cropped it and kind of color balanced it a little bit. And then the one that I got done with. Well, we're going to use this one here. We're not going to go to the flipping part of it. But I'm going to go ahead and go here, and I'm going to do Control I to bring this into the editing space where we're going to work on this. Now, if you were working in the GIMP or in Photoshop CS3, CS4, something like that, you would just simply open up the photo into the editing program. They don't have an organizer like Photoshop Elements does. And here we are now in the editor. We've got our photo here. And the first thing I'm going to do, I always go through, pretty much always, and the first thing I'm going to do is double click on the background so that I can make it into a brand new layer that's not a background, because we just don't have to deal with some of the issues with that locked background layer. Right now, this is a full color image, and even if we put something over the top of it, it's just not going to look right. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go to Enhance, and I'm going to go to Adjust Color, and I'm going to go to Adjust Hue and Saturation. I'm going to go to my Saturation tab, and I'm just going to take that all the way down. So it's basically a black and white image. Now it still looks pretty clean and crisp though, so I'm going to go ahead and go to Filter. And I'm going to go to Blur. I'm going to go to Gaussian Blur. And I'm going to give it just a touch bit of blur, just to kind of soften it a little bit. And the radius, you just kind of got to play with this a little bit, eyeball it to where you want. And the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into Filter, and I'm going to go to Noise, and I'm going to add just a touch, little bit of noise. And again, we're basically just trying to get it so that it's just a touch not so perfect. And we're just going to kind of eyeball it in, because I am doing it black and white. I'm going to set it to monochromatic here also, which it was. So now it looks a little bit noisy, a little bit fuzzy, a little bit old already. So okay, we're doing pretty good so far. But it still kind of looks like a modern photo. And granted, we do have these glasses here, which are totally not period. But I'm not going to worry about cloning those out in this particular tutorial. What I am going to do though now is I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Open. And in my Open dialog box here, it's set to go to My Pictures. I'm going to scroll down, and I have several images here that I've brought down to do kind of noise things. This is the one that I used before. We're going to try this Crackles one this time. And I'm going to go ahead and open it. It's a slightly different texture. And basically that's all we're doing, is we're kind of adding a texture to it. So there's our texture. Now, in this texture, the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do then is I want to go through and select a whole bunch of this to get rid of, so that it's like got some transparency to it. Again, we got a background layer. Double click on it, hit Enter. Now it's not a background layer anymore. We can kind of work with it. If you notice, my Magic Wand tool is selected here, and I'm going to go find a white spot in here. Also across the top, make sure contiguous is unchecked. Because if I went in here and had contiguous checked, it would get just this one area. But I want it to get the whole photo. So I'm going to go ahead and click here, and it's going to go through and select all the different white areas here. Now, with those selected, I'm going to hit delete. And what you see now is all this checkerboard background. If you see like just a white background, you're probably working with the background layer. That's a very common thing. People will forget to get rid of their background layer, and then when they do the delete, it's just like all white or something. It's like, no, that's not what I want. Well, kind of step back, make sure you don't have a background layer, and go to this. Now you see the kind of crawly ant thing going on because we still have the other stuff selected here. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape. Now notice what we have left here is just a whole bunch of crackles, which is exactly what we want. And I'm going to go ahead, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate the image, and we'll just simply rotate it 90 degrees right. It doesn't matter if you go right or left. I'm going to slide it off to the side here. And we need to get this over top the other image. So I'm going to go back to my original image, slide down to the side here. I'm going to create a new layer. Now I'm going to go back to my crackle layer, and I'm going to go select all. Could do just Control A also. Then I'm going to do edit, copy. Go back to my other image, edit, paste, and in that new layer now, I've got these crackles. If I go back down to my layers section and I click on the little eyeball next to my main layer and turn it off, what you see is you can kind of see the crackles. Now, the thing is with these crackles is that they don't cover the whole picture. So what I need to do now is I'm going to go up to Image, Transform, Free Transform. And it gives me this bounding box. I'm going to go ahead and stretch this out all the way up to the corners because I want to make it the same size as my original photo, or as the photo I'm working on. And then once I get it out where I want it to be, I'm going to make sure to hit Enter to kind of lock it into place. Now, the final thing here is the crackles are really, really, really stark. We don't want them to be that noticeable because it looks like somebody decided to wad up the photo. It's just a little too much. So like we did in Watermark, we're going to go back here to the opacity for layer 1, which is where we have the crackles. And I'm just going to simply tone down my opacity to just kind of soften that effect. And this, like a lot of things, just kind of eyeball it. There's no like perfect setting. And I kind of look at to see exactly where I want it. And it just kind of looks about there. That looks 28%. I like that number. That's a nice number. So now we got this kind of a crackle thing going on over the photo. So we went through, we desaturated the photo to make it black and white. We added a little bit of noise, a little bit of Gaussian blur to kind of make it look a little older to start with. Then we grabbed a Crackle Texture. We went up to a site called GC Textures, which has a ton of stuff. The website is referenced in the show notes on the side of YouTube and up on the atomicsupergeek.com website. And I went down and I just found this Crackle image, and that's what we used for the texturing, and laid that over the top of the other, just like we laid a watermark in our watermark photos. And it now looks old. And if you print this out, it's on like matte paper. It's amazing what it looks like.